Hey, welcome back to the House of Trauma podcast. It is your favorite podcast host, Kiana Brienne. Now let's get into it. So the topic for today's episode is actually near and dear to my heart, and it took me a couple weeks to really gather my thoughts because I want to be able to articulate well in a way that people can fully understand the depth of this controversial topic of colorism. Now, I myself, a dark-skinned woman in America, has experienced lots and lots of colorism within my own community since I was a child. And I feel as though in some cases, people don't acknowledge it, or they don't believe that it's real, or I don't know if some people don't want to accept that colorism is a real thing. But I just want to touch on a few topics today and also speak about my own personal experiences with colorism throughout my life. Now, before I dive deep into colorism and how it plagues the Black community, I think that it's important that we first understand the difference between colorism, racism, discrimination, and prejudice. Because in a lot of instances, and people I've come across, they don't really know how to differentiate the four. And a lot of times we're using one word when we should be using the other word, or we just don't have an in-depth understanding of it. So, with that being said, prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience. So, in short, prejudice is basically like a stereotype, right? Discrimination is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, sex, or age. So people can discriminate against women just because they're women, and maybe men think that women are less than, or a particular man thinks that women are less than. Does that make sense? Racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized group. Need I explain more? While colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with darker skin tones, typically amongst people in their same ethnic group. So while racism is colorism's sister, the difference is racism is discrimination or prejudice towards a specific ethnic group, and colorism is discrimination or prejudice within your own ethnic group, to sum it up. So in 2013, end of 2013 or beginning of 2014, when I was a sophomore in college, I was only 19 years old, I did a presentation in sociology on colorism. So the assignment given to us by the instructor was to pick a social issue, right? And to do a presentation on it. She gave us like a guideline, an outline on what the presentation had to be about, and she gave us a few weeks, and then we had to present it in front of the class. So I don't know what 19-year-old me was exactly thinking about, but I did it on colorism, and I stood in front of the class for 10 minutes and did my presentation on colorism and the research that I found and how it's plaguing the Black community. And when I was done, the instructor, she said, "Well done." The class clapped. And when I went back to my seat, this guy, Black guy, sitting next to me, he looked over at me and said, "I thought that was just a Twitter thing. That's not even real." It's not real. So here I am giving you statistics and facts, a 10-minute presentation on colorism, and you're going to tell me it's not real. It's just a Twitter thing, right? So if you were like old Twitter, original Twitter, like back in the day Twitter, then you understand the team light skin versus team dark skin. Yeah, it was kind of funny. Yeah, it was kind of a joke, but it was rooted in something deeper. And I myself would admit that I had team dark skin, hashtag team dark skin, in my Twitter bio for some years. in my latter teenage years, like, I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. I absolutely did. And I removed it shortly after my sociology presentation, once I did the research and realized that, no, this is a big issue. And similar to today, as in back then, is there are people in the Black community that think that it's a joke, that think that it's not real, that think people of darker skin complexions don't suffer from this, and they have a nasty habit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Essentially making it seem like it's just kind of made up in our head. Like, racism is a thing, but colorism can't be a thing. I don't know. Make it make sense. And so I believe that in order to make sense of the team light skin versus dark skin being an issue, because again, even, younger me didn't really think it was an issue. It was just like, okay, I'm team dark skin and it is what it is. But we have to take it back, and I mean way, 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 way back to the house slave versus the field slave. And I know some people are probably thinking it's not that deep, but just follow me and you'll see exactly how deep and real it is. If you're not familiar, which if you listen to this podcast, you are probably very familiar with a field slave and a house slave. Okay? Darker skinned slaves worked in the fields while lighter skinned slaves were house servants. House servants, and had comparatively better clothing, food, and housing. And back then, they were referred to as house Negroes, and they had a higher status and standard of living than the field Negro. And quote-unquote house Negroes were often a product of non-consensual sexual relations between slave women and their male owners. And having, quote-unquote, that divide between the house slaves and the field slaves, it later evolved into generations of Black people, both consciously and unconsciously, teaching themselves that one is better than the other. And some people feel like it's not that deep. It was then, that was then, and this is now. But I urge you to consider that if for hundreds of years you had darker skinned Black people, because I hate to even refer to our ancestors as slaves, even though that's just what it was. If you had the darker skinned people working out in the sun for countless amounts of hours, and then you had the lighter skinned people working in the house for countless amounts of hours, who, let the record show, receive better clothing, receive better food, and essentially receive better treatment. And no, it wasn't a luxury to be in the field or in the house, but just for the situation that our ancestors were in, and it just kind of evolved as time went on, that essentially if you were a lighter skin complexion, you were almost seen as more superior, more likable, more desirable. And that later evolved into the paper bag test. The paper bag test is a joke. And I remember when I was a kid, I had to be in like elementary school, maybe early middle school, and somebody said something about, the paper bag test. And we were literally in school during the paper bag test and didn't even know the extent on how serious and how disgusting the paper bag test was. So basically the paper bag test was to deny anyone of certain things that were darker than the brown paper bag. So if you get a brown paper bag, you put it up to your face, you put it up to your hand, and if you're lighter than the paper bag, then you're granted access. If you're darker than the paper bag, you're denied access. And it was access to social events, jobs, clubs, schools, And even reports as early or as late, probably still doing it now, but in the early 2000s, sororities and fraternities were using this as a method to deny entry into their sorority and their fraternity. Like, if you didn't meet the paper bag test, if you were not lighter than that, they wouldn't even grant you the access to their sororities and fraternities. So to think that this is a joke, to think that it's not real, to think that people aren't still doing it today and people have not been victims of this is baffling to me, to say the least. And the fact that this was honestly and truly a method used to determine if somebody was allowed within your organization or establishment, be fucking for real. I did a lot of research outside of the things that I already know and outside of the things that I've already experienced as it pertains to colorism in my own life. I did a lot of research, and my findings were both disgusting and heartbreaking. And to know that even the paper bag test is still potentially being used in this year of 2022 is very disheartening. And to think that a group of fucking 10 and 11-year-olds were in school performing the paper bag test on each other. And that just goes to show you the type of influence that's being passed down from generation to generation to generation. And that's why when we speak on field slaves and house slaves and how it evolved into team light skin versus team dark skin, and to say that there's no correlation, how can we say it's no correlation when we have things like that? And a lot of things that we know and that we do today, whether the good, the bad, the indifferent, are typically things that we've seen or that we were taught from our parents, our grandparents, our immediate and extended family. But we'll come back on the topic of family. So throughout my years, right, just being Black in America, just being a part of this amazing Black community, you grow and you learn that there are different shades of Black, right? Even outside of just the typical team light skin and team dark skin, there are different shades of Black, and some are used in a derogatory way. And I know that y'all will recognize some of these terms to refer to as, or that we use to refer to dark-skinned people, because you probably either called somebody it, been called it, or heard somebody being called it. For lighter-skinned individuals, they can refer to as high yellow, red bones, yellow bones, light brights, etc. For darker skinned people, I've heard them be referred to as chocolate, mocha, blackie, blue black, burnt, tar babies. The list goes on, right? And there's obviously more derogatory terms used to refer to dark-skinned individuals as opposed to lighter-skinned individuals. And I want to go on record saying that I'm not here to discredit that light-skinned people have been referred to as derogatory things. Like, that is real and true. But I promise there is a clear point that I'm trying to make in this. So just stay with me. Now, hold on. In the more recent years, it used to be an even divide between team dark skin and team light skin, right? But I've noticed in the recent years that dark skin individuals have received so much hate and have been deemed so, quote unquote, undesirable that we now have a category in the middle for, in my opinion, right? In my opinion, for the dark-skinned individuals that cannot pass for light skin, but don't want to be categorized in the dark skin category. And I've seen this with my own two eyes on Beyonce's internet, as well as heard this with my own two ears, that they're like, absolutely not. I don't want to be considered dark skin. I'm brown skin. I'm caramel. And all these other hues of brown that I guess are in between being dark. And I guess, I mean, call it what you want, right? But at the end of it all, light skin, brown skin, dark skin, we really are just black. And I mean, none of us are actually quite literally the shade of black. But as it pertains to society, especially in white America, okay, we all just black. And I feel like we need to speak more openly about colorism and how real it is, but not in a way to point the finger, more so in a way to educate, because we are stronger in numbers. And the sooner the community realizes that we're all just one ethnic group, or we're all just one racial group, the better off we'll be, the stronger we'll be. And the more energy we can put into fighting a real monster, which is racism. Because at the end of it all, the racism monster hates us all. And while we're hating each other, we're allowing them to win, essentially. Because remember what I said earlier, racism is colorism's sister, right? Since the beginning of time, they've used, quote unquote, the house slaves and the field slaves to show us that one's better than the other due to their closer proximity to whiteness. Because that's what it all boils down to. The lighter, the more fair your complexion is, brings you closer in proximity to being white in the European standard. Now listen. Dark-skinned women, and I'm a dark-skinned woman behind this microphone out there in the world, right? And I've noticed, witnessed, been a victim to dark-skinned women being unfairly labeled. So dark-skinned women are often portrayed as aggressive, masculine, difficult, less desirable, while light-skinned women are considered to be more pretty. And hell, even light-skinned guys are considered quote-unquote pretty boys. And we got the dark-skinned men, rugged, sluggish bone. You get what I'm saying? And it's just like, sometimes it's done consciously and sometimes it's done unconsciously. And I think that the unconscious bias is what we need to acknowledge and what we need to focus on to fix this issue. Because similar to racism, it's internalized. It's an internalized bias. The darker skinned women are viewed more harshly and in a negative light. For example, I've seen, let's just say, a light-skinned woman and a dark-skinned woman do the exact same thing. And we want to hold this darker-skinned black woman accountable for her actions in more ways than this lighter-skinned black woman. And that's not to say light-skinned women are never held accountable for their actions. What I'm saying is, darker skinned women are viewed more harshly and more often take a more crucial punishment for the same action that their light skinned counterparts also committed. So I see see this a lot in mainstream media. Because mainstream media plays a huge role in keeping colorism alive and well. And again, in most cases, it's an unconscious bias that people have, and they don't even know why they prefer the lighter skin. The internet, magazines, television, and society as a whole has tricked us to believe that we're less than a woman if our skin is not fair. And I think that there's a ladder, there's a totem pole when it comes to mainstream media, right? So at the top, they would like us to believe that it's white women, then, I don't know, maybe Asian women, Latina women, lighter skinned black women. And then at the bottom of the motherfucking barrel, they want to put dark skinned black women as if we are simply somehow, it's really disgusting. We are somehow less desirable, less of a woman, and less worthy of love and respect and marriage, even in today's society, because of what? Again, they pin these negative words on us, such as aggressive and difficult, with absolutely no basis to back it up. I have took a many TikTok hiatuses a many of times because I've clicked on that little fucking clock app and been instantly triggered and decided to exit stage left before I get completely out of character in somebody's comment section that I don't know and definitely don't know me. So if you're an avid TikToker, like I am, a TikTok user, then you know the trend that could potentially still be going on. I'm on Christian TikTok now, so that's all that really come on my For You page. But anyways, there was a TikTok trend going around where black men were saying, if it ain't snowing, I ain't going. And what they meant by that is, if it's not a white woman, they're not interested. And here we are as black women minding our own business, and we being dragged through the mud. For what? Okay, bye. If it ain't snowing, who cares? Who cares what your preference is, right? And a lot of people disguise it as, oh, it's just preference. I just prefer light-skinned women, or I just prefer white-skinned women, or I just prefer mixed-race women, or I just prefer Latino women, which is fine. Everybody has preferences in different things. I prefer tequila over vodka moving forward. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and tell y'all 110 ways why vodka is disgusting. I'm just going to tell y'all why I enjoy a shot of Don Julio. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not going to tell you 101 different ways why dark-skinned women are less desirable. I'm going to tell you why I prefer white women or light-skinned women. Yet, they fail to give reasoning behind their preference that does not involve the tearing down of the opposite party, the party that you deemed as unworthy or unacceptable. And I think it's important to acknowledge and recognize that a lot of this hate on the clock app for black women, especially darker skinned black women, comes from black men because it further proves that this is an issue within our own community, right? And of course, there are people of other races that deem black women undesirable or unworthy. But then we can talk about racism, right? But we're not here to talk about racism. We're here to talk about colorism within the black community. Even so, one of my favorite shows, I don't watch a lot of TV. I really don't watch TV at all. I've been in a hotel room for 3 days out of town, right? well, soon to be my new home, but out of town. And I've only turned on this TV once and I didn't even watch it. I watched TikTok. And I think the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was on and I didn't even watch it. Anyways, I don't watch TV. Okay? Let me not get sidetracked. I don't watch TV. But one thing I do like to keep up on is the Real Housewives of Potomac. Yes, RHOP. And I just seen an episode on Sunday that was the perfect example of colorism. So if you don't watch the Real Housewives of Potomac, it's amazing, beautiful, successful black women in Potomac, Maryland. All these women are of very high status. On the cast, there's a total of 7 women. 5 very light-skinned women, many who are mixed race, and 2 darker-skinned women with coarse natural hair, may I add. And in this particular episode, Dr. Wendy Osefo had a drink thrown in her face. She was also physically attacked. One of the lighter-skinned women by the name of Mia hit her with her purse and threw a drink in her face, while 2 of the lighter-skinned women egged her on and basically said that Wendy was antagonizing her, that she was the aggressor, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go down to the whole episode because you just really need to catch up on the show because it's pretty good. But the point that Wendy made, now mind you, she kept her composure. Number one, she's a professor at Johns Hopkins, and she's just a complete class act, okay? But she kept her composure, and then at the end, she reminded the cast that a few seasons prior, another dark-skinned woman was attacked by a dark-skinned woman, and they let her know that was completely unacceptable behavior. One girl had security almost every episode from there on out because she was afraid for her life because this girl was just out of control. She was a monster. It's never a reason to use your hands. We fight with our words, blah, 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 blah. So the point I'm trying to make is when the dark-skinned woman attacked another cast member, everybody let her know that it was completely unacceptable and iced her out. When the light-skinned woman attacked a dark-skinned cast member, or forget all that, when the light-skinned cast member attacked another cast member, they egged her on and said she was completely just because she made a comment about her husband. Right? And so the point of all of this is here we are, a group of black women, both light-skinned and dark-skinned, and we're only holding the dark-skinned woman accountable for her actions. And they like to say that it's not colorism within their dynamic in their friend group. And I know it's reality TV or whatever, but these people are being physically attacked in real life. You feel me? So the point I'm trying to make is here we are on a cast full of 7 black women, and we hold the dark-skinned woman accountable for getting physical. And then we coddle and even praise the light-skinned woman for getting physical. Do y'all get what it is that I'm saying here? Darker skinned women are always unjustly held accountable for their actions as opposed to their light skinned counterparts, while everybody should be held accountable for their actions. And again, this is in the media, right? We got TikTok, social media. We got RHOP, reality TV. And don't even get me started on the rap industry. Don't even get me started on fucking hip hop. Because the rap industry, which, by the way, is the #1 music genre in the world, advertently and inadvertently endorses European standards of beauty all the time. All the time. And we don't hold these rappers accountable for their words. What Tupac say? Listen to these rappers, what they saying, and hold them accountable. In fucking 2017, Kodak Black did an interview and said he preferred light-skinned women over dark-skinned women. Right? Okay. Could have kept it to yourself, but that's fine. That's your preference, right? So we could just chalk it up as his preference and not act of colorism. Until he divulged And what was it, like a song lyric or something? I don't want no black bitch, I'm already black. What? Yeah, you are black. You don't want no black bitch. Well, not only are you black, you fucking hideous. Maybe dark-skinned women, maybe black women don't want you. But let me relax, because here I am, triggered. ASAP Rocky, I don't know. Rihanna, my girl, she do some questionable things. Let me tell you why. I don't know what would make her ever want to be with ASAP Rocky when he stated light skin is the right skin. Okay. So what the fuck is the wrong skin? Please elaborate. And I don't know about y'all. I never got past it. I didn't get past it because, again, elaborate. If light skin is the right skin, there's right and there's wrong. There's left and there's right. There's up and there's down. There's east and there's west. If there's a right skin, there's got to be a wrong skin. So please, ASAP, share with the congregation what the wrong skin is. And my homie Kanye, I got to drag him too. Because I like Kanye West. A lot of people don't, but I like Kanye West. For the most part, I don't think he's crazy. I think he speaks truth, and people don't like to hear the truth in certain instances. Like, in certain instances. Anti-Semitic, nah. But we're not going to get into that. I read the other day, and this is new news to me. I didn't know this. I read the other day that I guess he was doing a casting call for his Yeezy fashion show or whatever. Mind you, Kanye West married to a white woman. But hey, interracial marriage, not necessarily for me. But again, love is love moving forward. He stated in his casting call that he fancied, quote, multicultural women, unquote, as models for his brand. Multicultural women? Mixed race women? Light-skinned women? Non-black women or non-darker skinned women? Again, this is elaborate. Why do you prefer multicultural women to model your brand? Why can't it be whoever is fit for the job, but you specify, quote unquote, multicultural women, aka lighter skin tone women? That's what I got. And y'all may be thinking, okay, Kiana, you thinking too deep into this. But until he elaborates, this is the conclusion I've come to, and so has most of America, Black America. And don't even get me started. Y'all know I don't even like Chris Brown. I just don't like him. And all the rumors for years this swirled around about him not allowing dark-skinned women into his sections at the clubs. Peep the type of women that are in these rappers' music videos, right? They love black features but don't love black women. Baby. The song lyrics from people like Boosie, Future, and Wayne, and other countless other male rappers on song lyrics where they so evidently stated their preference for light skins, red bones, yellow bones, mixed race, quote unquote, foreign women, or downed, dark skin, brown skin. I'm doing quotation. I wish y'all could see all the quotations I've been doing throughout. But dark skin, brown skin women. But we be here for another fucking 30 minutes. So I'm not even going to get into it. But I will quote the late great Tupac. The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I said the darker the flesh and the deeper the roots. I give a holler to my sisters on welfare. Tupac care if don't nobody else care. One of my favorite Tupac songs. Okay, keep your head up. Moving forward. The point I'm trying to make is, again, the rap industry does a really good job of keeping colorism alive and well, and we look past it because the songs are catchy or they're fun or we think people don't mean any harm. But these things are harmful to the Black community, and it needs to be addressed and not swept under the rug because maybe you in particular weren't offended by it. Like I said, I experienced racism even as a kid, right? So my Irish twin, who I've talked about on many episodes, my sister, we 10 months apart, it's my girl. We spent a lot of time together. We were in the same grade. We had the same friends. We did the same fucking things, played almost the same sports and extracurricular activities a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times. And she was visibly lighter than me. And people insisted on pointing that out every chance they got. As if I don't look in the mirror and see this dark-skinned Black woman or girl back then. And so, and I guess I haven't done enough shadow work to realize how much this particular incident really affected me. When I don't even know how old I was. I just remember being at my grandma's house when I still lived in Milwaukee. And for a while, my dad dressed me and my sister alike. And then he dressed us similar. So I just remember both of us wearing red and white, right? I think I had on like blue jeans and a red shirt. And my sister had on a red shirt with red and white pants. And we were just sitting outside on the porch. Some little boys across the street fucking catcalling. Hey, you in the red, you in the red. Hey, I'm trying to get your attention. Red, red, red. And we just like, what the fuck? We both got on red. I don't understand. So we like, who? Which one in the red? He like, what? I'm definitely not talking about the dark skin one. I'm talking about the light skin one. What? As if he couldn't fucking believe that we even thought he could have been referencing the dark skin one. I'm just like, if I had to be, I don't know, like 11? I'm like, well, goddamn. First of all, I don't know why the fuck you catcalling 11-year-old. I mean, he was our age too, but I don't know why you yelling across the street, AAA, trying to get our attention. And then when we like, well, who in the red attention is you trying to get? And you're so fucking disgusted that you can't believe that we would even consider that you were not talking about the light-skinned one. He probably like, bitch, I didn't even see you, Blackie. You get what I'm saying? Like, for me, or I'll say like this, for my sister, she probably was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm the one he talking about, whatever. But as a dark-skinned Black girl, first of all, that was rude. The way he went about it. And then it may seem like something so simple, but when you're a young girl, a young impressionable girl, dark-skinned, and somebody is letting you know, I absolutely don't want you, wasn't talking to you, it fucking stings. It wasn't the first time, and it sure wasn't going to be the last. And it goes back to dark-skinned women being deemed less desirable just off the simple fact of being dark-skinned. The good old-fashioned, and I know a lot of dark-skinned women have gotten this before, the backhanded compliment. You are so pretty for a dark-skinned girl. No, I'm just pretty. Thank you. I'm not pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I'm not pretty for a Black girl. I'm pretty, or I'm not. But we know that I am. Even more recently, I was at this hookah lounge with my neighbor. We went out one Sunday. We went to this hookah lounge, and this guy damn near ran across the bar to talk to me. He wasn't cute, but he was buying me a drink, so I entertained the conversation. My bad. We was talking for a while. He actually was cool. So I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Cool. And then somewhere towards the end of the conversation, because it was very much the end of the conversation, he goes, man, I normally don't even talk to dark-skinned girls, but you different. Say what now? And he repeated himself. He normally don't talk to dark-skinned girls, but I'm different. So I asked him, I'm like, well, first of all, different how? You don't even know me. You just met me. We in a bar. I can barely even hear what you're saying. The music's so motherfucking loud. And he like, no, I'm just feeling you. You different. And I'm like, well, I think this conversation is over. He wants to know why the conversation over. Fuck you mean? The conversation is over because you literally just told me you don't like dark-skinned women. And he goes, you probably don't even like dark-skinned dudes anyway. Well, that's where you're wrong. First of all, you're dark-skinned and I'm talking to you. And for me personally, especially if we want to talk about preference, I prefer my man to be 11:59 p.m. black. You feel me? So for you to sit here as a black man, as a dark-skinned black man, and to tell me that you really don't even like dark-skinned women, I'm like, how you thought that was going to go over? How you think I was going to feel? So he's steady trying to apologize and assure me it's not this and it's not that. I got my motherfucking drink and got up because I really could have made a fucking spectacle in that lounge. But why would I do that when he's so far from not worth it? It don't make no sense. Yet another example on how we as black people are our own worst motherfucking enemy. You normally don't like dark-skinned women, but I'm different. You don't even know me. I could be fucking psychotic. And then the fact that he felt so comfortable enough to be vocal about that within the first 20 minutes of knowing me. And actually, before I got up, I did ask him, well, what's your issue with dark-skinned women? Who hurt you? Told him his ex-wife was dark-skinned and this and that and this and that. Child, please. Bye. Me and my tequila and pineapple gotta go. And it's really just shameful the amount of hatred I experienced for my complexion as an adult, but I probably experienced it more when I was just a child, when I was just a teenager. I also remember clear as day, one of my brothers and my Irish twin, we were sitting on the porch outside. Well, it wasn't really a porch if you knew what our family home looked like in Texas. It wasn't really a porch. Anyway, we were sitting outside in front, right? And my two siblings told me that our parents found me on a barbecue grill. I was consistently called darky, blacky. Once in school, somebody called me an African booty scratcher. Like, And I remember when we used to spend the summers in Texas with my dad, when we would come back for school, my mom would always ask, like, why did my dad let us be in the sun so much? And, like, my family, not just my mom and my siblings, but, like, my cousins, my aunts, my grandma, they'd always be like, y'all got so black. Like, y'all just got so dark over the summer. And, like, the looks on their faces and the tone of their voice was, like, they were disgusted that we were darker. Like, they couldn't believe it. Okay, well, I'm a black person, and if I go in the sun, I'm going to get blacker. Come on now. Be fucking for real. I mean, people commented on my complexion more times than I'm willing to even admit. And a lot of times I just kind of roll with the punches. But in some instances, these stories that I can remember, these moments in my past, it was very fucking hurtful. Because I was born this way, number one. God don't ever make mistakes, number two. And how can we as black people, especially adults, speaking to younger children and commenting on their skin complexion, be deemed as acceptable? It's not. Even my siblings commenting on my skin complexion was unacceptable. Especially my brother. He just as black as me. Dead ass. Just as black as me. But I felt like my complexion was always a topic of conversation, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It wasn't cool. Being dark skinned with natural hair. 4C hair, no less. I have the tightest coils in my hair. And people typically only appreciate natural hair when it's loose coils or curls, right? And so I was in Salt Lake City for 32 days training to be a flight attendant, which is why I'm spending days in hotels right now, right? So me and a now friend of mine that I met in training, we went out with a group of classmates to this club one night. And myself and this friend of mine were not allowed, we were denied access into a section because we were both dark-skinned girls with natural hair. Yeah, you heard that right. They fucking Chris Browned us. I'm like, and I know I said this like 3 times already, but be fucking for real. Y'all gonna Chris Brown us? And if you look in the section, and I got a video on my phone because I don't play that, they let all the white girls in, all the Hispanic girls. I may have even seen 1 or 2 light-skinned black girls in the section. And I'm talking about light, bright, 2 shades from being white, black women, right? And so this section was full of all black men. And y'all wonder why I say we are our worst enemy, we the problem. This black man, at one point, because one of the girls who we went to the club with from class, from training, got let behind the rope. And she grabbed my hand and took me behind the rope with her. And when I tell you, this fucking black fool, this man ran over there and he's like, oh no, absolutely not, absolutely not. I didn't let you back here. He grabbing security. He like, how did this happen? Who let this girl back here? I don't want her back here. Like no. Girl's like, no. No. And I'm looking at the other black girl, and she looking at me, and she's just shaking her head, and I'm like, wow, this is real fucking life. He up here Chris Browning me right now. I had never in my life experienced such disgusting fucking behavior at a motherfucking club. And I done fought bitches in bars, and I respected them more than this man. Because you didn't say nothing when the white girl got left behind. And this is no hate to these women. Just like I didn't ask to be born as a dark-skinned black woman. Happy I was. But just like I didn't ask to be born as a dark-skinned black woman, they didn't ask to be born as white women or Hispanic women or light-skinned black women. This is just a privilege that they have. And they will never understand what it's like to stand in my shoes. And I will never understand what it's like to stand in their privileged shoes. Period. And light-skin privilege is a real thing that kind of coincides with colorism. Because the fact is, colorism is not a two-way street. It's just not. And I do know for a fact sometimes, due to colorism and light-skin privilege, light-skinned women have been, before, on occasion, mistreated by dark-skinned women because they're light-skinned. But that doesn't make them a victim of colorism, because that's not how that works. You may be hated or mistreated because of your privilege, but you are not a victim of colorism. And it's too many times where they're like, well, what about reverse colorism? It's just like reverse racism. It ain't real. And mistreating light-skinned women just because of their privilege is completely unacceptable, is what I want to be clear about. But we must understand that racism created a hierarchy. And by default, your lighter skin, your more fair skin, puts you higher on the totem pole than people with darker skin tones. And that's just a fact. And that's why reverse colorism and reverse racism is not a thing, right? They still cherish your proximity to whiteness more than they'll ever cherish my non-proximity to whiteness, because I'm so far from it. And before I continue, I want to make note, I think it's important to make note that colorism is not just an issue amongst the black community. Remember, it's a bias amongst people who share the same race or ethnicity. This includes Latin America, Asia, like different Asian communities. I actually watched a documentary some years ago, and if I'm not mistaken, I watched this in school. Maybe in one of my sociology classes in college, perhaps. I think that's probably when I watched it. But it talked about different ethnic groups, not including the Black community, where colorism was real. And it made me focus on Asia because there's dark-skinned Asians. There's dark-skinned Hispanics and things of that nature. So, again, this is not just a Black issue. This is a worldwide, this is a global issue. And this issue continues to feed racism. Because the more we participate in the idea that darker skinned people are less desirable, the more we prove these racist assholes are correct. Because what's the whole purpose behind racism? That the Aryan race is supreme, right? That the white race is more superior because they're lighter skinned than all other people of color. Because every other ethnic group is technically a person of color. But colorism is plaguing the Black community. And it's causing a huge divide. Whether it's the house Negro versus the field Negro, team light skin versus team dark skin. I told y'all about my experience in Salt Lake City and the crazy antics on TikTok. It's sad more than anything. And while some people choose to fight back on colorism, whether it's using their words, their hands, or some of us attempt to educate in order to create a change, it's possible, not possible, it's very real that people are even practicing colorism against themselves. And they dislike their own skin tone because of mainstream media, because of certain incidents that happen, throughout their life in different ways they've experienced colorism and racism. The desire for lighter skin lead people to get brightening products or skin lightening products in an attempt to become a few shades lighter. And skin bleaching is a hot topic in countries like Jamaica and Nigeria, where we see an extreme amount of dark-skinned individuals. But people, mainly women, do this because they want to feel beautiful or wanted. Because the mainstream media will have you thinking dark skin is just so undesirable. Will have you believing it's being dark skinned is the bottom of the barrel. That you're less wanted in society. Right? So, I mentioned I love Rihanna earlier, but I have to say this. As a licensed esthetician, one of the main reasons I don't use Fenty Skin, outside of the fact that a lot of the products are scented, and I wouldn't put anything scented on my face. For reasons I'm not going to get into today, because this podcast is not about aesthetics. But the other main reason I don't use Fenty Skin is there's an ingredient in the moisturizer that is a skin lightening ingredient. And when Fenty Skin first came out and Rihanna did a promo video, she said, quote, "You'll notice your skin get visibly lighter over time," unquote. Now, there are other products that can assist with the help of lightening your skin, and not for the purpose of wanting to be lighter skinned or to bleach your skin or things like that. But I look at product ingredients and I find it odd that my moisturizer would contain an ingredient that lightens my skin. Why in the world would I do that? unless for some reason I feel like my skin needed to be lighter. But again, as consumers, especially if you're not a licensed professional, you're not thinking to look at the ingredients. And, there's all these like scientific names and things like that you really have to dig into in order to fully understand what the product is used for or what that specific ingredient is. I also have a cosmetics line, Lolly Lips by Kiana, which I started in 2020 because Black women, especially dark-skinned Black women, were not considered the beauty standard, right? That's no secret. And it was hard to find lipstick and even makeup as a whole that complemented darker hues and were marketed and designed for us, for Black women. So me being a darker skinned Black woman, finding it difficult to find lipstick as a lipstick lover that complemented my skin tone, I created my own. Thus, Lolly Lips by Kiana was born. And that was the whole idea behind it. It was the whole campaign. We're not the beauty standard, so we're going to create our own beauty standard. Instead of waiting for white America to deem us desirable, to deem us worthy, in their eyes, we become desirable and worthy in our own eyes. Recreate our own makeup products for people like us. And when I first came up with the idea, this was before Fenty Beauty and a whole plethora of other skincare brands that now want to be more quote unquote inclusive. But for me, I take pride in being dark skinned. I take pride in being a Black woman. And though I played the Twitter games, hashtag Team Dark Skin was in my Twitter bio for years, as I stated before. And yes, I do have a preference on dark-skinned men. But it does not stop me from dating light-skinned men. I don't think light-skinned men are less desirable. And I don't often speak out loud on my preferences as it relates to Black men. Because again, I don't have to speak about how I want one more than the other, for whatever reason. The point I'm trying to make is I unconsciously played a role in the colorism narrative, the division that colorism caused in our community is the role I played. Whether you are light skin, dark skin, brown skin, whether you are African, mixed race, colorism in the Black community is very real. And some people don't see it. They don't understand it, or they've never experienced it. But that doesn't make that reality any less real. I wholeheartedly feel the only way to truly conquer colorism is for us to first acknowledge that it is real and it exists, and it can often be an unconscious bias that you're not even aware of. Dark-skinned women are often labeled as masculine, aggressive, difficult, or less desirable. These words are often hurled at dark-skinned women with no basis behind them. Colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with darker skin tones, typically among people of the same ethnic group. The only way for the Black community to stand taller and stronger is to fight the demons within our own community. I myself have been a victim of colorism, as well as many other darker skinned Black women that I know. I pray that this message, at the very least, sparked a conversation. I also pray that sometime in the near future, we can address this and hopefully move past it. My name is Kiana Brienne. This is the House of Trauma podcast. I'll see you next week.